I'm sorry. We won't get into that. There's a whole thing I want to talk about, which is
Why not? We got a little bit of
skirt
time.
skirt. Men right now are losing our minds. We don't know what our purpose is. I came home. Listen, all right. There's a much more eloquent way to describe this topic. I don't mean men are going crazy. I just mean that we're lost in the sauce. The resurgence of lonely men in the world and how individuals can fix it. We are facing a crisis of masculinity, and that crisis is being answered by people like Jordan B. Peterson and Andrew Tate. These people are flocking to these guys, not because these guys are right, but because they're tapping into something. And I'm going to have a little bit more substance rather than describing. But I think that there is a huge problem with like the role that like people who identify as men have in the world. And we're like, it's like it could be an all across the board thing. Like it could be for women too, and the non-binary types and stuff, and they just are succeeding in other areas, and so we don't see the struggle. But for men, it's like we've lost kind of the direction. And like, so think about this. I don't want to speak for you. When's the last time that you've like hung out with like a group of dudes, not in a virtual setting, but like you've gone to a restaurant or gone to a bar or something?
Um, the last weekend before, not like the weekend before, but the weekend
Okay, well, you
before
got a
that.
kid.
Right. No, I'm saying like when the baby was born back at the beginning of February, it was not like the weekend like of the 20th something of
Okay,
January, like 29th.
all
It
right,
was the 23rd or
it's good.
20
It's good.
twenty
I
second. Yeah,
I
I went out to
I
sushi with
can't
three
tell
friends,
you.
so I hadn't gone out in a long time.
I'm really really young, so it might have been different. Like 8 years ago might just be because I was young. But listeners, think about this too. I think that I haven't hung out with somebody in over a year until I like visited home and saw people. I like haven't gone out and
Right.
just talked to another man in person. It's always been like a social gathering and stuff. And it's a problem. People aren't doing stuff publicly because when I was younger, every fucking weekend, maybe even every other day, I was like hanging out with somebody. We're like losing this like personal connection. So we're lonely, we're losing purpose. There's a bunch of reasons I could guess why, but the way to
Well,
fix it is just like interacting,
I feel
doing
like
stuff.
okay. I feel like there's a more eloquent way to say what you're trying to say here, and I think I
Okay,
kind of got.
let's hear
I,
it.
I think I got an idea.
Okay.
So what you're getting at is that like there are these boogeymen type figures who honestly should be revered as boogeymen in some ways, like Jordan B.
Hmm.
Peterson and Andrew Tate. Also,
Hmm.
I think it's super funny that he got diagnosed with lung cancer by like a personal agent and said like that's publicly correct. And then he came back around with the tweets and he's like, "I did not do this. I do not have
Yeah,
cancer." And he
yeah.
like
I don't
punches
actually
some
have
cinder
cancer.
blocks or some shit, and he's
Yeah,
like doing some like karate pose. It's great.
yeah,
But fuck Cobra Tate. But honestly,
yeah.
what I
For
think
sure.
you're getting at is that like men in society, like particularly heterosexual men.
Sure.
I think this is where the like the center of the issue is.
Yeah, straight.
Have a
Probably white.
weird place in society comparatively to the years that have superseded it
Hmm.
existentially, like onward. But one of the weird things about it is how, like you said, it's a loneliness within men, and then they're turning into these uh I don't know how to say it's bigotous or like bigot filled
Yeah,
figures because they are looking for some kind of identity, but rather than doing that they're not having conversations even like this one.
yeah.
Like this
Which
is a
this is
more
better than
honest,
nothing.
right, that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. That's you're saying like just interacting, it's like just even saying these words
yeah.
and talking about it in a way of being like yeah. But I definitely went through that during like early COVID. Like there was a point where I was working from home exclusively for 10 weeks, and it was the only in-person interaction I was having with me and Sam. Every time she would come home from work, and I would just be there and
Yeah.
working and hanging out and taking the dog on walks and whatever. But even now, I'm kind of doing that with just her and the baby definitely keeps it interesting. Don't get me wrong, boys club
Yeah, yeah.
rules. Today,
Have a kid,
dude.
guys.
Okay, today
Knock some
it
bitch up,
was
okay?
me. It was me, baby right here in the arm, right, sleeping on the couch, dog laying on the
Hmm.
floor, and they were all like, I was petting the dog. And I was like, boys
Hmm.
club. Let's go, boys. It's time.
True.
We have been making
Yes.
jokes. So for a long time, me and Crowley, the dog, we've when mom leaves to go to like her craft shows on Saturdays or goes and does something, it's like I look at him, I'm like boys club, boys club, boys club, boys club,
Yeah, yeah,
real
yeah.
hype.
And now
And
it's
then when we
you
found out
got
we
a new
have
member.
we're right, so now we're just
Yeah.
keeping it real, and it had a little moment today, and it was nice, and It was very
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
But that aside, like those moments sustain you, but only so far. Like you have to have human connection, and it's a part of
Yeah.
tribalism. I think that kind of lacks like openly in human conversation and discourse, because humans innately like, okay, like I know I've definitely experienced this before with my mental health, but like a lone wolf like feeling, like where you don't want to like have to rely on anybody, you don't need
Yeah.
anybody for
Yeah. I got
anything.
this shit. I'm
But
gonna
then
white
it's
knuckle it. It's
like
mine.
you also realize like here's a thought for you: what's the worst punishment they can give someone in prison other than like the penalty? Like what's something that they can
Yeah.
do to a
Like
prisoner?
isolation. Put
Yeah,
him in the
yeah,
hole. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, you put them in fucking solitary confinement. You put them by themselves in a room with no fucking daylight or one little window or something, and it
Yeah.
drives a human crazy very quickly, and they crack.
Yeah.
So basically, humans aren't meant to be alone. We aren't meant to be
Yeah.
these isolated individual. Um, you
And
know,
arguing on Twitter or Reddit or YouTube comments, like that's
yeah,
not interaction. Even though
yeah.
you are interacting, you're not getting the same like hearing someone talk and like viewing facial expressions and like
I mean, as much
the
as I hate the
weird
term,
woo
like
woo.
keyboard warrior is a real thing. Like
Yeah,
you're just
dude, it was
depersonalizing
me.
someone, and you were just ripping
Yeah.
into who they are for what they say, surface value. When it's, like, here's an idea: how often do you miscommunicate with your wife?
Yeah. Yeah. Or do you even have a wife? Maybe figure out
I'm
how to
saying
get
for you
one.
and I
Oh, oh, oh,
personally,
oh.
like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how
Oh, all
much
the time.
exactly?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, regular relationship, very healthy one. You miscommunicate regularly. So imagine how many times you miscommunicate over the internet with strangers. Like,
yeah.
it's an
Or
insane
like,
notion.
yeah, because how much of communication is nonverbal, but then when you just put it into text, like you have this intention behind the words that you're saying, but they
You ever
could be
think
a
about the
totally different
faces you
wavelength.
make while you're scrolling Twitter, and you're like,
Dude, I swear to
like if
God.
you recorded your own feedback, it'd be like your face being like, "What the," like just
Imagine
raise
if
an
you could like
eyebrow.
capture the
Ugh,
face of somebody as they're typing a tweet so that you could like read their face while they're saying it.
Twitter is so based.
I want to expand on what you said real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I think you said that we're losing our there's a I don't remember the words that you said,
Tribalism.
but
There's an innate
there no
tribalism of humanity.
zoop 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 back further.
Sure.
The men are their place in the world, heterosexual men
Yeah,
especially.
it's a different place than it's ever been considerably. Like in the last like
Yeah.
10 years of our
Yeah.
society.
Well, think a little bit further back.
Or
We went
society.
from like the only way that you really needed to like succeed, which I'm not saying that this was right, but for all of human history was you basically needed to work a job as a dude. And then like that made you like, okay, I can now find a woman and support a family and like that's what I can offer. I can work a job, I can come home. Whether I'm like a wife beater or like I'm emotionally available, it doesn't really matter because like I have a job. Some people don't have jobs. That's good enough for me. And because women are now in the workforce and competing with men in that environment, it's not just enough anymore to like just have a job. You have to like do what women have always done, which was be the emotional grounding and like be able to interpersonally interact and like have, a care for cohesiveness and conflict filled environments and stuff. And men are floundering at this because that's stuff that women have always been taught from a young age. And some men picked up on that, but a lot of them just like were in this like weird space where they're not being given the same skills, but they're in like a totally different world than what the skills that they're being given for were for. So
I get the nature of what you're saying. I just also believe in like like everything you said. It's like, yeah, just being a good human being. It's kind of like what I thought by the end of you
well,
saying all those things.
yeah,
It's not that
of
it's like
course.
not necessarily what you're saying is untrue, that there is not this nature of like a lack of those skill sets or a lack of knowledge in those skill sets naturally from your upbringing,
Yeah.
because of your disposition of life, gender placement, whatever you want to say.
Well,
um
just culturally how we treat
yeah,
men and women. Like women are the ones that get the
man.
emotional care and men are kind of like left to like fight it out and stuff and whatever. And that's not enough anymore. That I'm not saying that
Yeah,
back in the old days it was better. I'm just saying I'm acknowledging the difference now. And I'm
you're
saying
telling
that
me it
like
wasn't better in 1985, brother, when the cocaine was
come on.
floored? No, I'm
Oh
kidding. I'm kidding.
God, go into the bathroom with the
Uh,
coke tables. I just
yeah, dude.
we have work to do with men that
Absolutely
where they need to be getting more emotionally like
available.
better, available and
Yeah,
communicative and
present.
speaking about things. And Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson are taking them down the wrong path by saying you need to be more masculine. Because what it really comes down to is it feels like women have always had the feminine traits down, and then they've actually gotten the masculine stuff by like entering the workforce. So they're like they're rocking this world, and men have only ever had the masculine, and they haven't really picked up on the feminine stuff. And so these leaders, the ones that are answering the problem, are telling them to ratchet up the masculinity more, when what they need to do is like work from the other side to like balance it out.
I'll agree with that notion.
Yeah.
I'll
Be,
definitely agree
be
with
in
that.
touch with your feminine side, boys. Go suck a dick here and there. All right.
Hey everybody, Fleeb here. If you guys like that clip and want to see more clips like that, check out the channel, 1 to 10 Podcast, or our Twitter, or TikTok, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell to see more clips and more full episodes. Later, dudes.